So good to have everybody here. It's 10 after. We have, how many we got here? 18 people in. That's very good. Okay, always trying new things here, seeing what works, what doesn't work. So at this time, I'm going to ask a question, and I would like everyone in the room to respond. I'll go ahead and call on you, and you just give me your response. You can be brief, but I want to try to do things differently. I'm going to pose a different question in each meeting and just kind of get some feedback, get some discussion. So whatever's on your mind, you agree, disagree, just kind of want your thoughts. Don't go on it at great length, but I think we're spending about 10 minutes doing this. And I'm going to cut this snippet out and publish it separately on YouTube because I'm trying to find shorter snippets to draw people in because not everybody's going to watch 2 hours of our meetings. So here is the question. You have multiple candidates ready to receive the degrees. Do you prefer, this is your own choice, your own opinion, not what necessarily what your lodge does, but you can elaborate if your lodge has a policy. Option one, you bring in as many candidates as possible on the same night to save time and get them into the lodge faster. Or option two, every candidate deserves to have his own special night and you only initiate one per evening. Steve, we'll start with you.
I would prefer having 2 or 3 go through. That's just my personal opinion. It's easier to control and the night is not as long, but that's just my personal opinion.
Brother Keith.
I believe we ought to do just one at a time. It's a special event for that candidate, and he deserves to be the sole recipient of the degree.
Very good. Brother Paul.
For the first degree, we've done up to 3. The disadvantage of that is the 2 of them are waiting for each one to finish. And so 3's our kind of our limit on that, but usually we haven't had a lot. We did do a master's degree with 2, and that was because one was military and was being deployed outside the state, so we had to. It was a rush one. So, but for the second and third degree, I think it's good to have just one.
Brother Brian.
One at a time, I think, definitely. Make it special, unless of course they're family or friends, in which case it might be more special if they do it together.
If you have 2 that are related to each other in some way, that's a good one. I had not considered that. Okay, Brother David. Have we heard from David yet? I think we did.
Yes, I did. Hello.
Okay.
Yes, I kind of like what Brother Paul said about for the first degree, you could have multiple people, but I think after that, I think you should narrow it down, and I think particularly the third degree should be individual.
Okay. Brother Peterson.
My preference when I was working for master was one at a time because I think it should be a special night, unless like Vince previously said that it's a family member that's coming in together, like 2 brothers, something like that, and then especially the Master Masons, it should be one at a. It's a special night. I don't think we want to take that opportunity away from the brother to be raised, and that's a special night too. So my preference is 1 for the entered apprentice, 1 for the Master Mason, unless there's some special circumstances that require like a military member. But I know in our lodge, depending on the number of candidates, 3 was the max that we have done on the entered apprentice at one night.
Brother Bernie.
I prefer 1 at a time.
Very good.
I feel that the candidate deserves full attention. We did 2 last night in a lodge, and the second candidate, he wasn't conducted properly, and it just takes away from it, I think. So I'm definitely opposed to it. I think that if you, insofar as the time, the important thing is to get started on time. And you can have your candidate ready to come in as soon as your lodge is open. The stewards go ahead and be preparing him while you're opening. And it doesn't take that long to do that and to confer the degree. So we were finished last night with the lecture, we were through about 20 minutes after 8. So we could have run that second candidate individually and been out of there by 9 o'clock, which I feel is still a reasonable hour. So there again, I'm opposed to that multiple candidate procedure.
Thank you. Brother Hughes.
Oh, yeah, one at a time. Any more it takes to gloss off it. It's only going to happen to once ever. So
Exactly.
It's got to be very special.
I'm trying not to influence the panel here, but I totally agree. You may conduct 100 degrees in your lifetime, but that candidate only gets to receive it once, and it should be special. All right, Brother Kurt.
I would say I would agree with only one at a time on the fellow craft and the master mason. There may be some advantage to having more than one on the entered apprentice, and that those guys come in and have that closer bond amongst themselves. I don't know for a fact that that happens, but that might help as far as having some interest and having a fellow brother that you're closer to, coming back again. But again, I'm new to this, so haven't totally seen a lot of what works the best.
Brother Joyner. You need to unmute. That's the most eloquent you've ever been, Mike.
Well, thank you. Normally, because when the thing is, these degrees are divided into first and second half. All first halves, I think, should be done individually, because that is an individual moment, particularly initiation and going into the third degree. But I have seen times, I think, but I agree with the brother that said that, when you hit the second half, when you brought them in the second half, for the second half, of the first and second degrees, I think that is can be a bonding experience between the two brothers for that. So that, when you're doing the second half of the first or second degree, primarily the lecture, that can be a great experience of putting two brothers together because they have a sharing there. But I think the master masons should definitely be all the way through individually, on that's my opinion. But I've seen some nice bonding on the first half of the EA and the fellow craft, doing them individually, but taking them second half together for that part.
I would definitely say every time I've seen people do when we do the entered apprentice, I've seen as much as 3 in one evening. We always do the lecture with all 3. I don't see any advantage in separating those out, but definitely the individual parts. But I don't want to influence everybody. So, Brother Rowe.
Typically, the individually, and unless you have, 2 at once, otherwise it just makes too long an evening for everyone.
Brother Taggart?
But only on the first 2 degrees.
Yes, I also highly am for the individual degrees, although I will tell you that thanks to COVID, we had to combine a lot of degrees this past year.
And that is an exception. I'll give you that. That was an exception.
So with that exception, but a lot of the brothers, to be honest, after they got their first degree together, they requested having their second degree together.
Really?
And that's because my year, last year, and the next year that I'm moving forward to, I get installed in another 8 hours or so. But we only do 1 degree a month. We used to do 1 every single week, so there was always opportunity for brothers to move. But once we told them that it's now a slow path and so many requirements are put on them before they can be moved to the next degree, they see that opportunity to be raised. Well, not raised. We don't do more than 1 raising in a day, but here in California, we do have ritual that combines the first degree or second degree to allow them to do that together. And so brothers have personally requested it, although I believe in the individual. You paid your own individual money. You should get your own individual experience.
Brother Robert, good to have you with us, sir.
Good to be here.
What's
I
your
would
take?
say I hear, I can hear that from both sides, but I think like everyone's saying, most everybody's saying is if it's your degree, you want to be able to understand it. The entered apprentice, maybe you could do 1-on-1 and then do the lectures. What you said about for both entered apprentice and fellowcraft. Now, as for the master mason, I definitely say that it needs to be one individual.
And just to be clear, I'm not talking about even having multiple going through at the same time. I'm talking about one per night, period. You show up, we're gonna initiate Brother Robert, period. Now, I admittedly, in the cases where my lodge has done this, they do, if they have two candidates, they'll initiate Keith, and then Keith gets dressed, he'll come back in, and we'll bring in Robert, initiate him, and Keith gets to at least watch Robert, and then both Keith and Robert will sit there for the lecture. I think that's the best you can do with the situation. But again, my opinion overall is just one per night. You show up, it's Keith's night. It's all going to be about Keith. He's the only one there. And then Robert is another night. All right. But again, I've tried to hold back and not express my own opinion. I want to get everybody get their own there. But I have had some good arguments for the other way, and I appreciate it. Let me get through everybody, give everybody a chance. Brother Aday. I don't want to run too long on this segment, but want to make sure everybody has a chance to say something. Brother Aday, good to have you with us. If you want to unmute and comment, he may be away. Okay. Brother London, I don't think we've heard from you yet, John. John, are you there? You want to offer your opinion?
Okay.
Hey.
Okay, hopefully I'm unmuted.
Yes.
I think that the one per night is ideal. On the other hand, I'd like to point out you don't want to keep the candidate waiting too long, and you don't want to overstress your degree team. So potentially you may want to go ahead and go with multiples to reduce the stress on the system.
Thank you. Brother Oliveris.
So there's been a lot of experience here and perspective, and I just want to share my perspective. And when I went through, I actually went through in a group. It was 4 of us, and I will say that I think this is a great question, because I think about when I went through the military training. I built a relationship with those guys and still talk to them to this day. And I can say about the same about my EA all the way to the Master Mason degree. I still have a good relationship with two out of the other 4 gentlemen, and I think it also alleviates the constraints that it could create on the lodge, putting on 4 or 5 degrees in a matter of a few weeks and things like that. And I will add that when I did it, each candidate went through their own. They were brought in individually, and we kind of went separate, but at the same time, if it makes any sense. But I think I think ideally, individually is good, but if you have to consider everyone and their time, and also what you get out of it with building those bonds. I think doing it as a group is not such a bad thing.
All right, thank you. Brother Guzman. Brother Guzman, you still with us?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was having a little difficulty unmuting. I agree with just about everybody that had said that have both opinions. However, in my opinion, this is an individual journey that we all take for betterment and self-improvement. I am of the belief that that night, especially for the enter apprentice, should be the special night. That is the night that he is coming into our fraternity, and he is the special one that night. Therefore, I believe in individual degrees, even for the other degrees, because as we progress and as we move on, that night is the night that the candidate, whether he is an enter apprentice or going into the fellowcraft or master mason degree, should be a special night for him. All the bonding that comes on that I heard some brethren talk about from getting initiated together, that bonding will develop as you are part of the lodge. So that special bonding, even though I understand it, I don't think it is an intricate part of that. As I said before, I think this is an individual journey that we all take to better ourselves. So that's my position on that.
Thank you. Brother Adamson. Anything to add?
As long as the candidates, have been or the applicants have been vetted and all the paperwork and procedures have been followed, get it done as quick as you can. So do 2, do 3, just, by hook or by crook, get them in, get them through, because you don't want to leave them waiting. I think leaving the waiting is worse than having multiple degrees.
Brother Aday. Brother Aday, I don't think I've heard from you yet tonight. Can you unmute? He may be away from his computer. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone. We had some good points all the way around. I will say this. I think we've kind of covered both sides, but just for your consideration, the arguments I've heard in favor of doing multiple candidates, and COVID doesn't count. We all get backlog because of COVID, and I understand trying to get rid of the backlog, but under normal circumstances, if you have 2 or 3, even 4 candidates going through the pipeline, the argument is, well, if we do several on one night, we can hurry up and get them into the lodge. But just my take on it, my lodge meets on the second Friday. That's our stated. The other Fridays are for work nights. I have seen us in a rush do a meeting on a Wednesday or a meeting on a Saturday just to get the guys in the door. And I look at it this way. If my lodge had 3 or 4 candidates, and assuming by the time you got through all of them for the EA, the first one's ready to take his fellowcraft, right? And then Master Mason, and the guys are progressing. You could spend every Friday from the beginning of the year, maybe through June or longer, you do an EA, and then you have your stated. Then you do another EA, and the first EA gets to watch. And then you do another EA, and those 2 get to watch. And then you do another EA, and those 3 get to watch. Meanwhile, they're learning their catechism. Maybe they're working together as a group and all working on the catechism together with one coach. There's your bonding. By the time the first candidate is ready, he comes back and does his fellowcraft. The other 3 can show up and watch him give his catechism so they know what it's like and they can see it. They can be there for the entered apprentice degree, and then they can hang out for a bit, maybe do a dinner before, and they can wait for the degree over, and then you all can spend time. But as each candidate comes up, the other ones can come watch him do his catechism, and then each one gets to watch the next fellowcraft once they've received it on to the masters. So you're talking about every Friday that's not a stated, you're doing a degree and you're having someone stand their catechism. Or you may even turn it around if a guy's fast enough. You may open up an entered apprentice degree, initiate that candidate. After he's initiated, before you close, you have the guy stand his catechism that night. And the newly initiated brother gets to see someone else do their catechism that night. And that way you don't have to open up an EA the next week when you do his fellowcraft. But here's the thing. If you're meeting every single Friday, everybody gets a chance to do their ritual. Every single officer gets multiple opportunities to rehearse his part, to deliver his part. You can have more than one person sit in the east to be the master because you have ample opportunity for someone else, the senior warden, the junior warden, to step up and sit in the east for the EA or the fellowcraft. You can have someone who wants to be a deacon who isn't in that position yet, fill in and be a deacon in 1 or more degrees. If your lodge is meeting every single Friday and you're working and you're actually moving forward and working on a new candidate every single week, and everyone gets a chance to do their part multiple times as an officer, what's wrong with that? I mean, to me, that's a fully functioning lodge. You're working every week. And there's always something going on. There's always an opportunity for visitors to come and watch the degrees, for other lodges to bring their EAs to watch the degrees. And you're firing on all cylinders. To me, in my mind, that's what a lodge should be doing. You're a healthy, growing, vibrant lodge, and you're working all the time, and everybody gets a chance to perform. I honestly, if you compare that to, well, my lodge is going to meet in January, we're going to have our stated, and then we're going to do 3 EAs. And then we're going to have a stated, and then we're going to have a stated, and in March, we're going to do 3 fellowcrafts, and then we're going to have a stated, and a stated, and a stated, and a stated. Oh, and maybe by August, we'll do a Master Mason's degree. So you're only doing 3 degrees in a year, 3 degree nights, and everybody comes in all at once. I'm sorry, I'd much rather be in the lodges working every single week. And by the way, if you miss a week, if your senior deacon can't be there, someone else can fill in for that degree. If you were doing all your things at once, you have to make sure that every single member is available. So I just think it's a more active lodge that's working it week in, week out than one that saves up all their candidates to do it once. But that's just my opinion. I appreciate everybody's input. That was a good little segment. I can cut that out by itself.